I used to think living to 100 was just about good genes or dumb luck, but then I met a 102-year-old woman who still walked to the garden every morning and cracked jokes better than people half her age. That encounter shook me, so I started studying centenarians, people who live past 100, not just in books, but in real life. What I found wasn't magic or mystery, it was daily habits. Simple, powerful rituals woven into their everyday life. And today, I want to share the 7 habits I adopted from them that completely changed the way I live. If you're over 60 like me or want to age powerfully, stick with me. These aren't tips, they're lifelines. Asterisk, I used to believe aging was a slow surrender. You know what I mean? The aches that creep in without warning, the forgetfulness that turns your keys into ghosts, the stiffness in your knees that makes every chair feel like a trap. Doctors, TV commercials, even well-meaning family members reinforced this idea. You're just getting older. That line became the explanation for everything. I accepted it like most people my age, without question, until one morning that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. Not that the day matters, but I remember it clearly because it started like any other. I woke up early, joints a little stiff, back aching just enough to make me groan. I shuffled into the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat in silence, staring out the window like I usually did. The sun was just rising, casting a golden light on my neighbor's garden. Then I saw her. Mrs. Anila, 99 years old, a tiny woman with a silver braid that hung down her back like a rope of wisdom. She was out in her garden again, barefoot, mind you, clipping herbs and humming a tune I didn't recognize. She moved like the wind, soft but full of purpose. No cane, no helper, just her and the earth beneath her feet. It wasn't the first time I'd seen her out there, but something about that morning made me pause. I set my coffee down and thought to myself, what is she doing that I'm not? We were both well past 60, me at 68, but the difference in how we moved, how we lived, was staggering. I felt 20 years older than she looked. She was vibrant, engaged, full of energy, and here I was, already resigned to decline. That same day, I went over to speak with her. I made up an excuse, something about wanting to plant tomatoes, but really, I just wanted to know her secret. She smiled, handed me a sprig of mint, and said, "You're not too old to start anything, but first, you need to stop believing what everyone told you about aging." That sentence cracked something open in me. We ended up talking for nearly an hour. She told me about her daily routine, nothing fancy. Just walking barefoot in the morning, stretching, eating fresh food, laughing a lot, sleeping when tired, waking with the sun. She didn't use fancy supplements or apps. She didn't own a fitness tracker. And yet, she radiated vitality. That conversation stayed with me. Later that night, I found myself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many years I had wasted believing the wrong story about aging. I realized that most of what we accept as normal after 60, weight gain, fatigue, chronic pain, isn't inevitable. It's just common. There's a difference. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's natural or unavoidable. That was the first lie I had to unlearn. I began to wonder, what if aging didn't have to be a slow decline? What if it could be a time of growth, clarity, and strength? That night, I made a decision. I would study people like Mrs. Anila. I would find out what seniors who live past 100 actually do. Not what magazines say, not what the latest anti-aging cream claims, but what real, living, breathing centenarians practiced every day. I was tired of feeling tired. I didn't want to just exist, I wanted to live. And so began a journey I never expected in my late 60s. I started journaling, taking notes on my sleep, my food, my moods, my energy. I traveled when I could. I talked to older adults at community centers, churches, farmers markets. I read about the blue zones, places where people live, the longest undiscovered patterns that shocked me. But more than the science, it was the stories that moved me. There was a 101-year-old man in Loma Linda who still rode his bicycle to volunteer at a children's clinic. An 89-year-old woman in Sardinia who cooked meals for her grandchildren every night, standing for hours in the kitchen, singing as she stirred the pot. A 103-year-old Okinawan who meditated each morning before tending his sweet potatoes. These people weren't just old, they were alive, really alive, and I wanted that. But the first step wasn't buying a bunch of supplements or joining a gym. It was letting go of the idea that aging is synonymous with suffering, that youth is energy and old age is exhaustion, that once you retire, your life begins to shrink. That's a lie, and it's a dangerous one, because if you believe that, you begin to act like it. You stop moving, you stop laughing, you stop trying, and slowly, you disappear long before your time. That was almost me. But after that conversation with Mrs. Anila, and after all the stories I heard and the lessons I gathered, I began to realize, aging isn't something to be feared. It's something to be mastered. I stopped using age as an excuse. I stopped saying, I'm too old for that. Instead, I started asking, what do I need to do differently now that I'm older? That single shift changed everything. I wish someone had told me this earlier. I wish someone had said, hey, you're not broken. You're just out of sync with what your body really needs. Because what I found out is this. The body has incredible potential to heal, adapt, and grow even at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. All it needs is the right habits. In the next part of this video, I'm going to share exactly what I learned from those who reached 100 and lived while doing it. 7 powerful daily habits that transformed how I eat, sleep, move, and think. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. And believe me, it's never too late. After my conversation with Mrs. Aniela, I couldn't let it go. Something in her eyes, bright, focused, full of life, kept calling me back. I had to know more. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I became curious again. That's the moment. It all began me diving into the stories of those who had not just reached 100, but thrived past it. I wasn't interested in survival, I was interested in vibrant living, and what I discovered changed the way I looked at aging forever. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, well, maybe they were just lucky, let me stop you right there, because that's exactly what I thought too. But the more I read, traveled, interviewed, and even video called centenarians from around the world, the more I saw something surprising. They weren't all rich. They weren't all genetically gifted. They weren't living in luxurious retirement homes, or doing cryotherapy, or taking expensive supplements. In fact, most of them lived in small homes, wore old clothes, and didn't even own smartphones. And yet they were full of laughter, purpose, energy, and a remarkable resistance to disease. And the most stunning part, they shared daily habits. So consistent it felt like reading the same story over and over again, just told in different languages and accents. Let me take you through what I uncovered. 1. They wake with the sun, not with an alarm. I noticed this again and again. Whether it was a 103-year-old woman in Okinawa or a 99-year-old man in Costa Rica, they all had one thing in common. They woke up naturally, without alarms. And usually with the rising sun. They told me something profound. If you wake with stress, you live with stress. And they were right. These folks started their day slowly, intentionally. They weren't rushed. They stretched, sat with their tea or coffee, or walked barefoot in the garden. It made me reflect. For decades, I was jolted awake by alarms, always in a hurry, always behind schedule. That lifestyle wasn't just exhausting, it was toxic. 2. They moved constantly. But not at the gym now. This part fascinated me. None of the centenarians I met lifted weights or ran on treadmills. Instead, they moved as a part of life. Gardening, walking, washing clothes by hand, sweeping porches, carrying groceries, simple movements. Done often. One 101-year-old man from Ikaria, Greece told me, "We don't exercise, we just don't stop moving." That stuck with me. Movement wasn't a chore, it was embedded into their way of life. That was a wake-up call for me. I didn't need to become a gym rat. I just needed to stop sitting so much and start making movement part of my day. 3. Their diet wasn't fancy. It was local and light. I expected to hear all about kale, smoothies, or special diets. Nope. Most of them ate food from their own garden or from nearby farms. Lots of vegetables, beans, whole grains, and small portions of meat or fish maybe. Once or twice a week. But what stood out wasn't just what they ate, it was how they ate. Slowly. Together. With joy. Meals weren't rushed or eaten in front of screens. They were sacred. I'll never forget what 100-year-old Maritza from Sardinia told me. We bless our food. Not just with words but with presence. Since then, I've started eating with gratitude. I chew slower, I savor the experience, and my digestion, much better. For they had strong social ties. Loneliness ages you faster than any disease. That's something I didn't fully understand until I met a group of elders in Loma Linda, California. They were all over 90, some over 100, and they met every week to share food, stories, and laughter. One of them, Grace, told me something I'll never forget. We don't live long because of vitamins, we live long because of each other. Every centenarian I studied had a sense of connection, with family, neighbors, a faith community, or old friends. They weren't isolated. They were woven into something greater than themselves. That inspired me to reconnect with my own circle. I started calling old friends, volunteering, saying yes to invitations. My mood lifted. My heart felt full again. 5. They had a sense of purpose, want to know something wild. One of the most consistent things among all centenarians was this. They had a reason to wake up every morning. Whether it was tending their garden, teaching a grandchild to bake bread, writing poems, or looking after stray cats, they had purpose. Purpose is powerful. It lowers stress, reduces the risk of heart disease, and even improves sleep. I used to think purpose was only for young people chasing careers, but these elders showed me that purpose deepens with age, so I found mine. For me, it was sharing what I've learned, just like I'm doing now. Telling stories, helping others rediscover the joy of aging well. 6. They slept deep and respected rest. Sleep was not a luxury, it was a ritual. No late-night TV, no phones in bed. They respected darkness, created calm evening routines, and allowed their bodies to recharge. I had spent years on sleeping pills, tossing and turning, thinking it was just part of getting older. But when I adopted their simple habits, light dinners, no screens after dusk, herbal tea before bed, my sleep transformed. 7. They practiced joy on purpose. Laughter, music, prayer, dance, singing. These weren't rare activities, they were daily experiences. A woman in Nicoya, Costa Rica told me, "If you don't laugh today, you haven't lived." That hit me hard. I started keeping a joy journal. Every evening, I write one thing that made me smile. It's a simple practice, but it's changed my entire outlook. Looking back, what amazed me wasn't how different these centenarians were from Uspat, how simple their lives were. No magic pills, no secret hacks, just timeless wisdom and consistent habits. And the most beautiful part, every single one of these habits is something you and I can start today. No matter how old we are, no matter how broken we feel, the body and mind respond to Karat any age. In the next section, I'll walk you through exactly how I began applying these habits one by one into my own life. I'll share what worked, what didn't, and how it all led to a transformation I never thought possible after 60. Stick with me. This is where it starts to get real. When I turned 60, I thought I knew what life had in store for me. A slower pace, more doctor visits, maybe some aches and pains, and plenty of time to reflect. I had no idea that this would be the beginning of the most powerful transformation of my life. Inspired by those vibrant centenarians I had met, I made a decision, not a dramatic one, but a gentle promise to myself. Just try one habit, then another, one day at a time. That small step turned into a life I never thought I'd live, again full of energy, connection, and deep peace. And now, I want to walk you through the exact 7 habits I began to practice daily, the ones that slowly, surely, changed everything. 1. Starting the day with stillness. I used to wake up to the sound of blaring alarms, followed by a rush of anxiety. My mind would leap to worries, doctor appointments, bills, my kids, my past mistakes. But after hearing about the centenarians' gentle morning rituals, I decided to change things. Now, I wake up naturally around 6 a.m., sit quietly by the window with a cup of warm water and lemon. I don't check my phone. I don't turn on the TV. I just sit and breathe. At first it felt strange. I was used to doing, but over time, I began to feel something powerful. Presence. It's hard to describe unless you've experienced it, but that 5 minutes of stillness gave me more clarity than anything else in my day. I stopped starting my mornings with stress and everything else started falling into place. 2. Gentle movement. Every day. I'm not talking about going to the gym or lifting weights. That's not what saved me. What saved me were intentional movements, stretching my arms toward the sky, walking slowly around the block, doing 10 deep squats while holding the kitchen counter. It began with just 5 minutes. That's it. Now, I walk about 30 to 40 minutes each morning, sometimes in silence, sometimes listening to calming music or nature sounds, and I do some gentle yoga stretches before bed. My joints feel looser. My posture has improved. But the biggest change, my mind. Moving my body clears the mental cobwebs and makes me feel alive. 3. Eating light and listening to my body. You won't believe how much of my energy used to get drained by overeating, eating at odd hours, or indulging in processed food out of boredom. I took a page from the Centenarians book and simplified my meals. Now, I eat light in the evening, usually some soup, lentils, or steamed vegetables. During the day, I enjoy fruit, whole grains, and occasional fish or boiled eggs. And most importantly, I stop eating when I'm 80% full. A habit known as harahachi-bu in Okinawa. That one habit alone changed my digestion, sleep, and waistline. Not on a strict diet. I'm just in tune with what my body actually needs. That was the game changer for connecting with people. 11. If it's just one call. There were days in my 50s when I'd go an entire day without having a meaningful conversation. That kind of loneliness creeps up slowly, but it wears you down. I decided to change that now. Every day, I either meet someone in person, call an old friend, or at least send a thoughtful voice message to someone I care about. I also joined a small community gardening club, not just to plant vegetables, but to plant relationships. And you know what? Just that one moment of connection each day brightens everything. It gives life color. 5. Reading or learning something new. The mind needs exercise, just like the body. For years I fed my brain mostly with TV shows or news headlines. But after hearing how the longest living people kept their minds sharp, I committed to something different now. Every day, I read at least 15 minutes of something meaningful, whether it's a book on philosophy, a spiritual text, or even a new skill I'm learning. I also started learning Spanish on a language app, just for fun. Keeping my brain active gave me back a sense of growth. And when you feel like you're still growing, you don't feel old, you feel curious again. 6. Writing down 3 joyful moments. This one surprised me the most. Each night, I open a little notebook by my bedside and write 3 things that brought me joy that day. Sometimes there's a smaller bird at the window, the smell of fresh coffee, a hug from my granddaughter. But this simple habit retrained my brain to look for joy, even on hard days. It's hard to be bitter or hopeless when you end each day noticing beauty. 7. Ending the day with gratitude and forgiveness. This final habit was the most healing. For years, I carried regret, things I said, people I lost, opportunities I missed. It weighed on me, like a shadow that wouldn't leave. But I started ending each night with a short, silent prayer. Not a religious one, just a personal moment of gratitude for another day, and forgiveness for myself and others. It took time, but over the months, my heart grew lighter. I started sleeping better, and I began to feel at peace with where I was in life, not chasing the past or fearing the future, just being here. Now, what I learned after 90 days of these habits, after 90 days of practicing these 7 habits daily, I realized I had created something much bigger than a routine. I had built a life system that supported my well-being. My energy came back, my sleep improved, my digestion, my focus, and my sense of purpose all soared. But the most beautiful shift, I liked myself again, and that's what I want for you too. You don't have to start all 7 today. Just pick one, try it tomorrow, and the next day. Let the habits stack slowly, gently, without pressure. Soon you'll look back and realize you didn't just add years to your life, you added life to your years. When I first decided to change my lifestyle after turning 60, I'll admit it wasn't easy. I didn't wake up one day magically disciplined. I wasn't one of those people who suddenly starts drinking green smoothies, stretching like a yogi, or sleeping at 9 p.m. sharp. No, I was just a tired man, a little scared of the future, who had spent most of his life in old routines. But I wanted change. I just didn't know how to make it stick. Now that I've been living these 7 daily habits for years, I've learned some powerful truths. If you're like me, someone who's tried to change before and struggled to stay consistent, then this section is for you. Here's exactly how I turned new habits into a lasting lifestyle that's made my 70s healthier and happier than my 50s. 1. Start small, ridiculously small. When I first started doing yoga, I didn't roll out a mat and try to twist like a pretzel. I sat on the edge of my bed and reached my arms toward the ceiling for 10 seconds. That was it. When I decided to eat healthier, I didn't throw out everything in my kitchen. I just added 1 extra serving of vegetables to my lunch. Here's the truth. Big change doesn't come from big actions. It comes from small actions done daily. If you try to do too much, too fast, you burn out. That's what happened to me in the past. But once I focused on doing the tiniest version of a habit, every single day something shifted. I built trust with myself. And that trust is the foundation of long-term change. 2. Attach new habits to old routines. 1 of the tricks I learned was habit stacking, doing a new habit right after something I already do. For example, after I brush my teeth in the morning, I drink a glass of water. After I make my bed, I stretch for 2 minutes. After lunch, I take a 10-minute walk. By linking new habits to existing ones, I didn't have to think about when to do them. They became automatic, like brushing your teeth or locking your door when you leave. It's like giving your new habit a ride on the back of an old one. And over time they become inseparable. 3. Track progress, but don't obsess now. I'm not the type to use fancy apps or complicated systems, but I did start keeping a small calendar in my kitchen. Every time I did one of my habits, I'd put a little check mark. Seeing that growing chain of checks motivated me. I didn't want to break the streak. It wasn't about being it was about showing up, even if just for a minute. Eventually, that visual reminder became a quiet source of pride. I'd look at that calendar and think, yes, I'm still showing up for myself. Forgive the off days. The hard truth, you will miss a day, or 2, maybe even a week. I did. There were days I didn't stretch, days I ate like my old self, days I didn't call anyone, didn't write in my gratitude journal, didn't care. In the past, missing a day made me feel like a failure, and when I felt like a failure, I gave up. But this time, I changed the story in my head. I told myself, a missed day isn't failure, it's feedback. When I fell off track, I asked myself why. Was I tired, lonely, bored? Then I just restarted. No drama, no guilt, just a fresh page. That's how habits become life. Not by being perfect, but by always returning. 5. Make it easy. Make it obvious. One of the reasons we don't stick to habits is because we make them too hard or too hidden. So, I made changes. I put my walking shoes right next to my bed. I placed my vitamins next to the coffee mug. I kept fruit in a bowl on the counter instead of hiding it in the fridge. I made healthy choices, easy to grab and hard to ignore. The fewer decisions I had to make, the more likely I was to follow through. Remember, your environment shapes your habits. Set it up like a friend, not a test. 6. Create social accountability. I didn't try to do this alone. I told my daughter about my new habits. I asked my neighbor to join me for walks. I even posted 1 or 2 updates in an online senior community I had joined, just knowing that someone else might ask, "Hey, how's the walking going?" That was enough to keep me moving. Humans are wired for connection, and habits grow best when they're shared. Even if it's just one person tells someone what you're working on, let them be your mirror and cheerleader. 7. Celebrate the wins, big and small. We're often so focused on what we haven't done, we forget to celebrate what we have done. But Centenarians taught me something beautiful. Joy is part of the formula for longevity. Sona. Every Friday evening, I do a little celebration. I light a candle, make a cup of herbal tea, and write down 3 things I did well that week. Maybe I walked 5 days, maybe I resisted late-night snacks, maybe I smiled more. Whatever it is, I celebrate it. And that celebration keeps the flame of motivation alive. Putting it all together, so, to make habits last, here's what I've learned works. Start small. Attach to existing routines. Track progress visually. Forgive off days. Design your environment to help. Lean on others. Celebrate along the way. It sounds simple, and it is. But it's also profound. The longer I've done these habits, the more I've realized it's not about the habits themselves. It's about becoming the kind of person who does them. When I stopped focusing on the outcome, weight loss better, sleep longer, life, and started focusing on my identity, that's when it all clicked. I wasn't trying to be healthy anymore. I was a healthy person. I became the kind of man who walks, stretches, connects, eats light, and sleeps with peace in his heart. That identity gave me freedom, and it can give you freedom too. What's coming next? In the final section, I'll share what surprised me most after living this lifestyle for several years. Not just the expected benefits, but the deep emotional gifts I never saw coming. The transformation in my mindset, my relationships, and even my sense of legacy. It's a story I've never shared publicly, and I hope you'll stay with me for the final chapter. I began this journey hoping to live longer. I never expected it would make my life feel so much richer. At first, adopting healthy habits was about survival, avoiding the hospital, reducing my joint pain, keeping my memory sharp. But now, after living this way for several years, I've discovered something I didn't see coming. It's not just about adding years to life, it's about adding life to those years. In this final section, I want to tell you the real rewards of a long, purposeful life. Not just what improved in my body, but what changed deep inside me. This is the part no one talks about, but it's the most important one. A deeper connection with myself. Before I began these habits, I was often disconnected. I'd sit for hours in front of the TV, unaware of how tense my shoulders were, or how shallow my breathing had become. It wasn't that I didn't care, it's that I didn't notice. But when I started moving my body daily, eating intentionally, and writing in a gratitude journal every night, I began to notice myself, my thoughts, my energy, my feelings. For the first time in decades, I started asking myself things like, how do I feel today? What does my body need? What made me smile this week? Those questions brought me home to myself. And honestly, I felt like I had reunited with an old friend, the me I lost in the noise of everyday life. 2. Stronger bonds with others. One of the biggest surprises. How these habits improved my relationships. It's not that my family and I didn't love each other before, but I used to be too tired, too distracted, or too grumpy to truly connect. Once I started walking daily and sleeping better, my mood changed. I smiled more. I had more patience. I began calling my grandchildren more often, even just to hear about their day. I remember one Sunday, sitting on the porch with my granddaughter. She said, "Grandpa, you seem happier these days." And she was right. I wasn't just living long, I was showing up better, as a father, a grandfather, a friend. Good health didn't just give me time, it gave me quality time with the people I love. 3. Freedom from the fear of aging. Let me tell you a secret I never admitted before. 4. Most of my 60s, I was afraid of getting older, afraid of losing my independence, afraid of becoming a burden, afraid of disappearing quietly into the background. But something incredible happened once I built these daily habits into my life. My body got stronger, my mind stayed sharp, I woke up with energy, and suddenly, aging didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a season, and one I was finally learning how to enjoy. I started viewing every gray hair, every wrinkle, as a symbol of survival. I was still here, still growing, still becoming, and that fear I once felt, it began to fade. Not because I became invincible, but because I became empowered. 4. A clearer sense of purpose. For years after retirement, I struggled with purpose. My career was over, my children were grown. I asked myself often, what's the point now? But, slowly, as I took better care of myself, I realized, purpose isn't something that ends, it evolves. These days, my purpose is simple, but powerful: to wake up and honor my body, to share what I've learned with others, to make someone smile every day, to live with kindness and curiosity. I may not be building a business or raising children anymore, but I am building a legacy, one quiet, healthy, intentional day at a time. 5. The joy of simple things. Living with daily discipline has taught me to appreciate the little moments. Before, I'd rush through breakfast or forget what day it was. Now, I savor my cup of tea in the morning sunlight. I listen to the birds. I feel the breeze on my walk. These small joys used to slip by unnoticed. But today, they are my greatest treasures. I used to think I needed big adventures or dramatic events to feel alive. Now, I know better. The ordinary is extraordinary when you're fully present to it. 6. The peace of being ready. This may sound strange, but living with intention has also given me peace about death. I don't fear it, like I used to, because now, I wake up every day and live. I give my body movement. I give my spirit gratitude. I connect with those I love. And if tomorrow is my last day, I'll go knowing I didn't waste the ones I was given. That's a powerful peace, and it's a gift I wish more seniors could feel. 7. The power of being an example. Perhaps the most unexpected gift. Becoming an example for others. I've had friends ask, "What are you doing differently?" I've had strangers on walks smile and say, You look strong for your age. And I've watched my children and grandchildren adopt some of the very habits I started late in life. That's legacy. Not money, not fame, but influence passed down not by force, but by living well. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real and consistent and open to growth. That's the kind of example we all can be, no matter our age. In closing, my message to you, you've made it to the end of this video. I want to say something simple, from the heart. It's not too late not to feel better, not to live longer, not to enjoy your life again. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just pick one habit, one small thing, one gentle promise to yourself. Start there, stay there, grow from there, and one day, like me, you may look in the mirror and see someone you're proud of. Someone who didn't just grow old, but grew wise, strong, and joyful. Living to 100 isn't just about luck or genes. It's about how you live. So, live well, my friend, and may every day ahead be a step toward the life you deserve.